My name is Bobby Brannon, and I serve as president of the World Trade Center of New Orleans. And it's my pleasure to welcome these distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, along with our other guests, to this breakfast as part of the Experience America tour. We have a great program lined up this morning, and I'd like to thank our moderator, Mark Singletary, president and publisher of the New Orleans Publishing Group, and our other panelists for being here today with us. The city of New Orleans, and indeed the state of Louisiana, is proud to have been selected by the State Department as one of the hosts for the Experience America tour, which provides our visitors with a unique opportunity to both learn about this great nation and also share their insights with us. New Orleans is one of the oldest and most important international cities. It's no surprise then that our World Trade Center is recognized as the first of what are now some 300 World Trade Centers in almost 100 countries around the globe. With 5 deep water ports between the mouth of the Mississippi River and Baton Rouge, we have the largest port complex in the world. We are home to 52 full-time and honorary foreign consulates, reflecting our diverse population and our role in international commerce. For these and many more reasons, we hope our visitors always feel at home here. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the U.S. Department of State, and especially Ambassador Marshall, Chief of Protocol for the United States, who has been invaluable in making this event possible. Thank you so much. This morning's breakfast is presented in coordination with Gulf South Business Systems and Consultants Incorporated, and made possible with the support of the Mississippi Development Authority, the Louisiana Economic Development, the Committee of 100 Louisiana, DSC Dredge LLC, Jones Walker, MG Mayer and MBLX, the New Orleans Business Alliance, and Whitney National Bank. Thank you all very much for being here this morning. We hope that your stay here will get a glimpse of some of the things that make New Orleans and Louisiana special, and we invite you to return as soon as you can. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ambassador Marshall to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Brannon, and good morning. And what a lovely morning it is here in New Orleans. We are very excited to be here, and couldn't think of a better place to be than at the World Trade Center on this very fine morning. On behalf of the Diplomatic Corps, we thank you, Mr. Brannon, President of the World Trade Center, for this lovely, kind invitation. And also, we'd like to extend our thanks to Mr. Dominic Knoll for putting together this wonderful program, and to all of our esteemed panelists and moderator for what we know will be an informative and engaging discussion on economic global interconnectedness. The statistics show that the World Trade Center has provided for, in particularly in the aftermath of Katrina, this extraordinary city, wonderful economic opportunity, and most in particular, jobs. You have found those jobs, created those jobs, and provided those jobs for this wonderful city. And it is one of our goals within Experience America to bring this extraordinary diplomatic community to various cities, and to seek out the business community, and to find for them new opportunities in which to engage with America, with American businesses, and with new opportunities. So it is our hope that when they return to Washington, D.C., and we most unfortunately have to leave the lovely city of New Orleans, that they will return with new ideas, that there will be new ways in which we can engage, and that this will lead to global partnerships. And so again, we thank you so very much. We look forward to this dialogue and discussion, and most importantly, we look forward to engaging with all of you in the future on new jobs, new economic opportunities, and new ways in which we can partner with the world and with New Orleans. So thank you all so very much.
Good morning. My name is Mark Singletary. As Bobby said, I'm the publisher of the local business journal, and that's called New Orleans City Business. And I can tell you from someone who observes the business of this area that this is a very, very, very vibrant, very, very challenging, very, very changing business community. And we brought together, we think, some of the leading experts in not only private enterprise, but public-private partnerships, industry initiatives, people who are involved in driving the economic development engine in this region. And we thank you so much for being here. We invite you to go ahead and one of the things we hope you get about being in New Orleans, it's all about the food. So we invite you to go ahead and enjoy your breakfast, and we'll begin this conversation we have about economic issues and development in the greater New Orleans region. So thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy it. We're going to have a panel discussion, and then we hope if you have some questions that you can, if it's a burning, compelling question, you can stand up and throw something at me, and we'll go ahead and do that. But if not, we'll take questions at the end of the presentation. So sit back and enjoy the intelligent discussion that's about to take place from these gentlemen. And let me introduce them. First, we have Samuel Jaberga. Samuel is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Chief Compliance Officer of Hornbeck Offshore Services. Hornbeck is a diversified marine services company headquartered in Covington, where he oversees all legal and corporate matters for the company and serves on its 6-member executive management team. Prior to joining Hornbeck, Jaberga was engaged in the private practice of law as a partner in the New Orleans-based firm of Carrera, Fishman, Haygood, Phelps, Walmsley, and Castix. He is also co-founder of Maritime Claims Americas, which operates a network of correspondent offices for marine protection and indemnity associations throughout Latin America, and previously served as a director of the American Steamship Owners Mutual Protection and Indemnity Association. Samuel Jaberga. To his left, Samuel Jaberga. Dominic Knoll is the Chief Executive Officer of the World Trade Center of New Orleans, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting international business and trade in Louisiana. The World Trade Center acts as a vertically integrated hub that creates and distributes trade-related information, facilitates community outreach and education through seminars, meetings, and roundtable discussions. Knoll has diverse experience in general project and strategic management, negotiations, marketing, and sales. He has worked successfully for both large multinational companies and small startups. His international business experience in Italy, Germany, Austria, Denmark, the United Kingdom, and now the United States is supported by extensive academic credentials. Dominic Knoll. Roderick Miller. Rod is the president and CEO of the New Orleans Business Alliance, the official economic development organization responsible for driving long-term economic vitality of the city of New Orleans. Prior to that, he was executive vice president of the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. Miller has a Master of Public Policy degree from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and a Bachelor of Science in International Business from St. Augustine's College. He has also gained a graduate diploma in finance from the Monterey Institute of Technology while completing a Fulbright fellowship in Mexico. Rod Miller. Michael Olivier is the CEO of the Louisiana Committee of 100 for Economic Development. The Committee of 100 is a private sector nonprofit business advocacy group intent on building coalitions and partnerships to bring business and economic development to Louisiana. Olivier served as Secretary of Economic Development in Kathleen Babineau Blanco's administration from 2004 to 2008. In 2006 and 2007, Olivier was named one of the top 10 in the U.S. to make a difference in economic development by Southern Business and Development magazine. His work led to Louisiana being named State of the Year for the first time by that magazine. Michael Olivier. Patrick Schuurman. Schuurman serves as NASA's John C. Stennis. He is the director of NASA's John C. Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. As director, he provides executive leadership, overall direction, and management of the center. He is responsible for implementing NASA's mission in the area of rocket propulsion testing, developing and maintaining NASA's world-class rocket propulsion test facilities, and ensuring that Stennis serves as the Systems Engineering Center for Applied Science activities assigned by the agency. He is a 22-year veteran with NASA, and he was named Deputy Director at Stennis in 2008 and served as the Associate Director prior to that. He also served as the Chief Operating Officer of NASA's Michoud facility in New Orleans, where he was responsible for day-to-day management operation. He holds a mechanical engineering degree from our very own University of New Orleans. Patrick Schuurman. Well, gentlemen, you now have the opportunity to speak to this audience about our vibrant, diverse, growing, challenging economy. The perceptions about Louisiana range from limited to misguided. Now's the chance to put some guidance in that perception as we talk about how shipping, oil and gas, agricultural, transportation, technology, and lest we forget tourism are still big, big parts of the economic engine that drives this state. Let's kick off the conversation with a little bit about how we build on the past and bring that to the future. Sam, you want to start us off here?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm the, I guess, the representative from the oil and gas industry, specifically, in our case, the services industry, where our company provides marine services to oil and gas companies around the world, but particularly here at home in the Gulf of Mexico. We are the interface between the shore structure and the offshore drilling and exploration activity that happens. So our vessels are the umbilical cord that connect the shore to the offshore operation. I guess turning to the interface of shipping, technology, and oil and gas, that's sort of where we live at Hornbeck Offshore. What we are, and I want to kind of give you a big picture real quickly. I'd like you to imagine a map of the Gulf of Mexico, which we're all familiar with, and I want you to imagine that since the 1940s or so, we've discovered approximately 50 billion barrels of oil equivalents in the Gulf of Mexico. That's roughly the right number. Since that time, we have produced approximately 27 billion barrels of that oil. In the last 5 to 10 years, in the deep water Gulf of Mexico, through technology and through the ability of ships to do certain things, we now believe that we have discovered below the salt level an additional 50 billion barrels of oil. So it's as though technology, and marine technology in particular, has enabled us to find an entirely new Gulf of Mexico beneath the Gulf of Mexico that we thought we already had. So, and that's happening here in Louisiana. It's being driven by companies that are headquartered here, that have developed, that were pioneers in the development of the offshore oil industry, and that technology is being used around the world, not just here. The technology that we have developed in Louisiana and the Gulf South in particular, you know, is the technology that's being used to exploit and develop subsalt fields in Brazil. It's what launched the North Sea expansion in the 60s and the 70s. So this is really sort of the cradle of offshore energy. This is where it all began. And I think if you understand that component of our economy, you have a real good feeling of the importance that it plays in our economy, but also in the world economy. We've got approximately 1/3 of all of the oils, of all of the world's oil comes from offshore, and about 10% of that comes from deep water. And if you think about the cost of getting oil out of the deep water, what it tells you is that, you know, oil companies will spend that money because they have to, because the easy oil is running out, and we have to go find it in more challenging areas. Well, here in Louisiana and the Gulf South, we are focused on that challenge, and that's what we're doing in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what is driving a good part of this economy.
Dominic?
Thank you so much for being here. First of all, and for us, it's such a pleasure to host you here, all different ambassadors, as you just heard. And I would like to point out that we are here at the panel, but please also look left and right to you, especially the ambassadors, and talk to the people sitting at your table, because there's distinguished business leaders on this table who have all different expertise. And I just wanted to say that first. Then I wanted to follow up at the mayor's remarks of yesterday, that he said it's a melting pot. New Orleans is a melting pot. New Orleans is an international city, and the same is true for the state of Louisiana. I said I'm the CEO of the World Trade Center here, and so I think my portion on this panel will be the international trade aspect. And to give you some numbers, if you look just at the population itself of the state of Louisiana, you are roughly we are roughly 25th in the whole country. But if you look in terms, so you would say it's not that big of a state compared to others. But if you look in terms of exporting, and if you look in terms of international trade, we are actually in number 9 currently on the 2010 figures, with roughly doing 41.3 billions in exports, as well as having a lot of imports as well. So you see how important this international piece is for this region, and this is also something said. There's a vast history of international trade, as the mayor alluded yesterday, but you will see that there's three main exports in general, just to mention those quick. You have agricultural, who is a really big portion, and roughly 36% of all of our exports. Then you have oil and gas, as we just heard, and as well as you have chemicals. But those are the three main exports. But then you have a lot of knowledge-based, or a lot of knowledge who developed over the different years, and as we just heard here with Hornbeck, that there are companies who do a lot of business international, and in general there's a great business environment, and also it will be supported by city, by the state, as well as by organizations as ours to facilitate. Thank you.
So my name is Rod Miller. I'm the CEO of the New Orleans Business Alliance, and I believe the question really revolved around kind of that, where is New Orleans now historical kind of industry positioning vis-a-vis kind of the future. So when people think of New Orleans, or at least before I moved here, when I thought of New Orleans, I thought oil and gas, thought the birthplace of jazz, thought lots of good food, and those are the kinds of things that I thought about. When I got here, I found out that that's all very much true and very much at the center of what New Orleans is, but it's a whole lot more than that. So when we start looking at, and our organization, the New Orleans Business Alliance, is responsible for economic development, specifically within the city, a lot of which revolves around the attraction of new firms. So what we found is a lot of core competencies in the advanced manufacturing, which is really set apart by facilities such as Stennis and Michoud, the NASA facilities out there. We've got technologies that really position us to continue to be a leader in the advanced manufacturing space. Our logistics infrastructure through the port, through the 7 railways that are connected here, through the highway system, allow us to access across the country. So all of that's great, and all of that's, you know, what we've got and what we've had and what we'll continue to build on. The other opportunity, though, is really that in the digital entertainment space. So you're talking about a state that has the most aggressive tax credits for the film industry, the most aggressive tax credits also for software development. So what that's meant for us is that we're now number 3 in film production after LA and after California and after New York. It's also created interesting opportunities too on the software development side because of the connectivity. A lot of the manufacturers that are here are developing software and stuff for their manufacturing facility and are able to take advantage of the tax credits as well. We are the number 1 region according to Forbes magazine for the attraction of smart people, of college-educated young folks under the age of 25 in the country. So there are a lot of things that, you know, that are pointing in the right direction in terms of our ability to bring talent to the market, in terms of our ability to align our assets and our core competencies to the future growth potential that we're seeing in terms of economic competitiveness globally. And then all of that's tied together by an ecosystem which is coming together quite nicely between the leadership at the state through the Louisiana Economic Development, the leadership regionally between, you know, our Economic Development Group, GNO Inc., which is the regional group, and the alignment of the parishes. We really do work in a regional fashion, so whether it's Jefferson Parish, St. Bernard, or New Orleans, we recognize that this region has to work together, and the core competencies complement one another nicely.
Well, good morning. I'm Michael Olivier. I work for a private sector group called the Committee of 100 in Louisiana, which is composed of over 100 chief executive officers throughout the state of Louisiana. We're a statewide organization. The purpose of our group is to support the economic development from activities from a private sector perspective. And we welcome you to the Gulf of Mexico region. One of the things that we always talk about is that this is a state that's not the largest in the United States. However, the Gulf of Mexico region and the states combined, if you look at Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, the Gulf of Mexico region, that I-10 corridor, I-20 corridor, certainly supports a great deal of activity, economic activity, and has done so since the Hurricanes Katrina, Rita events in 2005. And you will hear more about those developments as you're visiting this part of the United States. The job performance in our state has been significant. We've had great and recognized as having some of the best job performance wins in recent years. Along with those states, it's a regional thing. Louisiana certainly stands to be identified as one of those states in the region that has significantly done better than most states in the United States. And so we have gained the State of the Year recognition not only for 1 year, but for multiple years since 2006. We've identified ourselves as having one of the best state workers training programs in the United States, particularly helping those businesses identifying what are their needs individually and tailor-making a program to them. So the best and most aggressive business climate is what we're known for. The pro-growth policies that have led to this growth for Louisiana has been the elimination of business taxes, the personal income tax cut, the comprehensive workforce development reform that we were talking about, and a focus on the retention and expansion of existing businesses in Louisiana. Under economic performance, The economic outlook is one of the nation's best in the Gulf of Mexico region. Louisiana has distinguished itself by a growth rate for goods and services as fifth best in the United States, third best out of 25 boom states as seen today. And our real estate markets have remained strong, as have the banks and our financial institutions, increasing in net loans and leases throughout these recent years. And we've been one of the best export performers for 2009 and 2010. The rankings for Louisiana, we used to rank very low in almost everything. Today, we are known now for being in the top 10 for many things. Number 2 for economic growth potential, number 7 for the best business climate, 9th in business climate rankings, number 1 in top 10 competitive states, number 6 in top states for doing business, number 3 among states leading economic recovery, number 4 for the best workforce development program, number 4 for the best overall business environment, and most improved state for business, which for us means a lot. The results have been there in terms of these past few years: 40,000 net new jobs, $9 billion in new capital investment, which means new sales and tax revenues for the Louisiana economy. The key wins for our area have been companies not only from the United States, but also companies from globally. The Shaw Group here, based here, a Fortune 500 company based here, is investing over $100 million. Blade Dynamics from the United Kingdom has set up operations at the Michoud Assembly Facility outside of New Orleans here in East New Orleans, which you'll hear more about later. Nucor Steel, establishing a multi-billion-dollar facility here outside, along the river outside of New Orleans. And SNF is a French company that has established operations here. We have companies like EADS, which of course those of you in Europe are familiar with. Cheniere Energy, working in the liquefied natural gas area. Sasol, which is a South American company. We have foreign direct investment from France and the United Kingdom leading, number 1 and number 2. They have a total of 27 companies each. The Netherlands has 23 companies in Louisiana. Germany has 20. Japan has 13. Canada and Switzerland each have 11 companies. We have foreign direct investment also from Ireland, Taiwan, Denmark, Mexico, Norway, Belgium, Finland, Italy, Australia, Bahrain, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And so, why Louisiana? The answer is we've got competitive incentives, and we've been leading in terms of some of those incentives that have been driving areas of the economy that we want to be known for and want to focus on, which includes our oil and gas and our traditional industries like agriculture, but also areas such as filmmaking, digital media, and other areas of research and development. And of course, our natural resources, our unique infrastructure with our port, and again, one of the reasons we lead in exports in these states as of past few years is because of the position of the Mississippi River and our ports along the Mississippi River, which has led to billions of dollars in new domestic and international investment in Louisiana.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you for inviting me. On behalf of NASA, we're proud and pleased to be part of this region for over 50 years now. And first wanted to start off to say I know many of you probably flew in from either international locations or back from travel to get back to the home state. We're proud from a NASA perspective to lead the frequent flyer in space, and that we've traveled over 100 million miles around the planet. And if you look up today, as a matter of fact, in the stars, and I'd invite you to go to nasa.gov to look, but anywhere in the world, depending on where you are and the time, the largest man-made star in the sky is now the International Space Station. And you can see it brilliantly lit up as it races across the sky at about 17,500 miles an hour. It is the largest, most complex engineering feat ever put together by mankind, and obviously an international effort to do so. We were pleased from a regional perspective to power the space shuttle with the space shuttle main engines, which are tested at the Stennis Space Center, and put large pieces of the International Space Station up on the space shuttle. We're getting ready in November, the day after Thanksgiving, to launch the next most significant mission to Mars, the Mars Science Lab, and it's on track to be launched. It'll be the most scientific, intensive mission ever to the red planet. This is in an unclassified form, so I can't talk to you about the people who populate Mars now and their anti-aircraft battery. It is a complex situation. Laws of physics are common internationally, although I think we pride in NASA and our international partners to try to tackle the impossible every day. From a local perspective, this region should be proud in that there are only 10 NASA centers across the United States. Between Stennis Space Center and the NASA Michoud Assembly Facility, we represent two of the most important facilities for spaceflight anywhere in the world. And I can tell you for a fact that we are, as a country, not leaving this planet if we don't come through either the Michoud Assembly Facility for the stage production facilities we have in cryogenic tankages and the National Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Friction Stir Welding, that we're ever trying to get lighter materials and lightweight, because the biggest piece of getting into space is getting off the planet Earth and the gravity well that we have here. So if we can figure out lighter materials, it obviously saves us in payload for when we push those start buttons on the engines and leave the Kennedy Space Center. And usually when you push the engines at Kennedy Space Center and they light, you're usually going somewhere. And we're proud to say we have successfully completed the space shuttle program. We've flown 135 missions of the space shuttle. We safely landed the last one in July. We have already begun the next vehicle, which is the Space Launch System. And in fact, Stennis Space Center have already started testing the engines for that vehicle as well. We have another test coming up Tuesday for the upper stage engines. We'll be testing the boost stage engines now. And if you're looking for a regional promotion, you just go to, again, nasa.gov. Yesterday, we had the image of the day on the nasa.gov website, and that the space shuttle main engines are being shipped back to Stennis Space Center so we can refit those to be used for the next vehicle. So we're so proud for that. There has been some professional and personal trying times. I'll say for me, I'm very proud to be from this region. I've had a great education from grammar school all the way through high school and college. Very pleased to be back here in the community that raised me. As the moderator said, started back here most recently at the Michoud Assembly Facility, and there was this little storm called Hurricane Katrina that blew through. We were very proud to say that we followed the plan that we had for the skill base that we had at the Michoud Assembly Facility. And although a lot of New Orleans went underwater, in New Orleans East there was one island called the NASA Michoud Assembly Facility that executed the plan great. And basically if Michoud would have went underwater, the space shuttle program would have been over in 2005. But I'm pleased to say that it worked exactly according to plan. And those 38 people who were on that ride-out crew were awarded NASA's highest medal, the NASA Bravery Medal, which was previously only given out to test pilots who had lost their lives pushing the edge of the envelope in the deserts over Mojave. We came back from that, and I was pleased to see from a personal perspective and a professional perspective to say that I had a front porch seat on the resiliency of the workforce in this region. It was beyond me on how some of the workforce who literally were rescued off their roof 2 weeks earlier were in the factory of the Michoud Assembly Facility, continuing the complex processes that we had to get the external tank ready to fly again. Within 30 days, we were open for business for it. And I kid my colleagues in Washington, D.C., who kind of shy away from, well, you know, there's a hurricane that comes to this region every now and then. And when I hear it enough, I finally stop them and say, how many days did NASA headquarters close this year due to ice storms or Tropical Storm Irene? And they usually kind of grumble and say about 15 days. And I say, and Stennis hadn't closed at all this year. So pleased from a Michoud Assembly Facility to have that manufacturing. And then from a test stand perspective at Stennis Space Center, I talked to you about what we do at Stennis. There is no equivalent in the United States of what we do at Stennis Space Center for rocket engine testing. And we're going to have sounds that this region hadn't heard since Apollo when we fire up the 5 engine clusters that we're going to be using to get back to the moon and onto Mars for it. So we're pleased to have that. Also, the last thing I just wanted to say or to reiterate is, again, this country, from a NASA perspective, is not leaving this rock called Earth if it's not for the facilities and the skill base in this region at the Michoud and Michoud Assembly Facility and the Stennis Space Center. The engineering and skill base scientists, I'll dare say that from Stennis and Michoud in the Gulf Coast region has no equivalent. We have the largest concentration of scientists and engineers and oceanographers at Stennis anywhere in the world that study the oceans. The U.S. Navy has their worldwide headquarters there, and we have over 30 federal, state, and commercial companies, and Mike had mentioned Blade Dynamics. And the last thing I just want to conclude with is in today's environment and federal resources that are becoming ever more scarce, we would not be successful at Stennis and at Michoud if it wasn't the partnership that we have with the Mississippi Development Authority and the Louisiana Economic Development Association in Baton Rouge, to where they put real money on the table with new tooling to help us push the state of the art. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. Now we're going to get specific. Let's talk for a minute about the unique advantage Louisiana and the Gulf Coast has in some very specific, far-reaching economic initiatives. And the two that I'd first like to begin talking with, and we'll talk to Sam and Patrick here, is one, I don't think that enough people really understand the concept of advanced manufacturing and what that technology brings through Michoud's ability to leverage the science of manufacturing to new public-private partnerships. We've mentioned a company called Blade Dynamics that is locating here and building turbine blades for wind turbines for electrical generation. But that is an initiative that's taking place because of something we call advanced manufacturing. And at the same time, the oil and gas industry, particularly the offshore services companies, have been able to attract brain power because that is a technology-driven industry that depends on, I guess, the leveraging of skills against the balance sheet. So if you guys, Sam, if you want to start about how the oil field offshore service industry looks to innovation to kind of center their growth pattern.
Well, it's innovation every day. Every day in our industry, the envelope is absolutely being pushed to the limit. We talk at the other end of the table about going to space. We often use that analogy in our business. Every day we're going to space. We're going to a world that is very strange and very deep, very cold, very far away, very complicated, and we do things there that are very specialized. And as we saw a year and a half ago, can be very dangerous and even tragic. So we have to do it in a way that is safe and environmentally responsible. Just looking at it from the strict point of view of building ships, most of our ships are built in this region. Because of the kinds of other assets that we are interfacing with, the drilling rigs and the other construction vessels that we're interfacing with on any given day, we have the most modern and advanced kinds of marine systems in order to prevent a tragedy. An example of that is dynamic positioning systems, which rely upon the very satellites that our friends at NASA have put up into space. And basically what we do is when one of our vessels comes to a drilling rig, which is dynamically positioned over the drilling site, and what that means is it's there without an anchor, and it's hovering over that site, and it's drilling, and it's doing what ships do on the water. It pitches and rolls and deals with currents and winds, and our ship has to come and interface with it and do the same thing at the exact same moment. So when the drilling rig does this, we have to do that with it. And all of that is done with systems that are called dynamic positioning systems that make sure that our ship and their ship are in sync, and that happens via satellites and GPS and all of that kind of stuff. So my point is, right here in this region, those are the technologies that we're using in every day in real time, in a real way, in a very stressed situation. So it's very real. We rely upon enormous amount of brain power and know-how and technology to make sure that all those things that are happening every day, 24/7, work the way they're supposed to work, and we do it without a problem.
Okay. Logistics. We're having a little trouble hearing and seeing in the back of the room. So Patrick, if you wouldn't mind standing up and speaking into the microphone so the crowd to do. And we're on a quicker clock here, so 3-minute answer.
Okay, 3 minutes and counting in NASA vernacular.
3 minutes and
right?
counting.
I guess what I do is I would echo what Sam was starting to say there, and again, NASA, I'll say, you know, when you see us on TV and you see the astronauts floating in space, you know, it really looks easy, and you know, don't come with the wrong conclusion there. I mean, it is fun, and I mean, I haven't been there obviously, but I know a lot of personal friends that have been up there, and it is really cool to see them. I give them that. But we do more than float M&Ms back and forth. Really, what we were trying to do is we're really trying to push the state-of-the-art in material science and also different composites and that kind of thing. Again, as what I'd said is the laws of physics haven't changed, and I think unless somebody makes some huge discovery, they won't change, at least in my lifetime. The key to us is to try to get lighter weight, safe vehicles to get us not only from Earth to low Earth orbit, but really when we're moving beyond low Earth orbit, which the shuttle has had us in the last 40 years, is beyond low Earth orbit, it really becomes even more critical for us to move into composites and to other lightweight aluminum and anything else that we could do to save on propellants to get us more mass from Kennedy Space Center into low Earth orbit, because we're going to need a great vehicle, a great transfer vehicle to move from low Earth orbit back to the moon or over to Mars is really what we're trying to do. And the more we come in discovery, in science, and in instrumentation, and diagnostics, self-diagnostics, health monitoring, those kind of things, which are applicable and pushed from the state-of-the-art for NASA, but very applicable, and we have a lot of synergistic technology forums with the petrochem industry as well as the Department of Defense, because they work in some extremely harsh environments as well. So when we're talking about engineers and scientists and technicians in this region, whether those engineers graduate from mechanical, electrical, or whatever other regional schools that are here, it's very common for them to go to work either in the petrochem industry or the Navy, who's in this region heavy, or NASA, because the skill base is there, and each one of us take those engineers and scientists to specifically to what we have to do from a regional perspective to get us where we need to be.
Thank you. So Rod and Mike, I'd like for you guys to address a couple of other advantages that we've developed in Louisiana, particularly, is our tax incentives for the creative industries, and how that has really opened up the door for entrepreneurship, a brain gain, if you would, and how you guys in the economic development world are leveraging that.
Yeah, so looking at...
Stand up if you don't mind.
Okay. So looking at tax incentives and the creative class here in New Orleans, what we found, and in the state of Louisiana, what we found is, so we've got the most aggressive tax credit for software development as well as for the film industry of any state in the country. What we found is... Hello? Yeah. This works. All right, so what we found is that there has been a brain gain that's happened. So we've got companies like Gameloft, which is the subsidiary of a French company which announced here about a month and a half ago with 150 jobs, average wage of about $70,000 a year. We've got a lot of companies that are startup companies because we've got a robust entrepreneurial environment, which is a direct byproduct of a couple of things. So the robust entrepreneurial environment is a byproduct of, one, the creativity that is New Orleans, which is Louisiana. And so you've got a lot of young people with these skills and technology that are finding ways to leverage the support that is provided by a variety of incubators we've got throughout the region, as well as the support through the incentives process. So that's encouraging the entrepreneurship for it. And then also we've got kind of a lot of collaborations between the companies that are coming from outside of the market, as well as the base that we've had here, and the technical expertise that's being provided by the universities. So we've got top programs in things like digital media and things like music business at schools like Loyola, Tulane, WTCNO, UNO, the list goes on and on. So we're finding that there's a lot of growth that's happening in the economy, which is a direct byproduct of 2 or 3 things. One is incentives. 2 is talent that's being created by the university. And then 3 is an ecosystem of support through both finances as well as incubation support services.
And if I may just drill down a little bit further, if you noticed in Rod's description of the incentive programs, the wealth of employees that we have in the state, their training capacity, all of these things are critical to the success of the private sector in our states. As an example, the research and development tax credit that we have here in Louisiana is one of the most lucrative I've ever seen in any state, and it was a derivative, if you will, of what happened with the film industry and the incentive programs for it, which led to the digital media incentive program, and now the research and development tax credit, which is up to a 40% tax credit for businesses that conduct research and development activities in Louisiana. What's even more important is that some of these tax credits, if you do not have a tax liability, can be turned into cash because you can sell them in the Louisiana market. And there is an infrastructure now available which was derived from the film tax credit industry that is available for actually selling these tax credits that will inure to actual real dollars coming back to the company who have earned these tax credits. And so when you combine that with the workforce development program, which we consider to be an incentive, you combine it with the other incentives that many of our states enjoy, from the enterprise zone program to quality jobs programs, industrial tax exemption, new markets tax credits, restoration tax abatement, and others, you can see that these are aggressive measures that are being taken by our states to attract business and industry. And by the way, these incentives are available to existing businesses. They're certainly available to businesses wishing to invest in our states, but they're also available to companies with intent to do foreign direct investment in our states.
Thanks, guys. And Dominic, let's talk about the Mississippi River. Let's talk about New Orleans and Louisiana's connection to the rest of the world and how our international trade initiatives are taking place and the successes.
Yeah. Prior to when I was speaking, I was saying that we are 25th in the nation right now in terms of population, but we are actually number 9 in terms of export. If you look at the last quarter or the first quarter this year, we were actually number 4 in the whole nation in exports. And the reason for that is really, as you just alluded to, the Mississippi River. We are lucky to have this river here. As you see it, when you go outside and when you make a walk at the French Quarter, you will see the river. But then also, please realize that, for example, the Port of New Orleans is one of the biggest ports in the United States. We're the #1 coffee importer, we're the #1 rubber importer, but it's not just the Port of New Orleans, it's a whole port complex. So in the state of Louisiana, you have 5 deep water ports, and you have the biggest port complex in the world. So reason for it is really the Mississippi River, and to give you statistics, you have roughly 60% of all the grain shipped out from the United States coming through that river. As you said, that goes along with the long history we had in, or New Orleans has, with the different areas we hear right now. You have really not just the established companies, established businesses, and established industries, but the state also makes sure that new industries and future industries get the certain incentives they need, the certain framework for governments, the certain frameworks they need to really be competitive throughout the market. So I think I want to point out a set as well that yes, we have the established companies, yes, we have the new industries, but it's really also about the knowledge, and it's really also about the people and the culture you will experience when you are in your stay here. And so I think that is, it's an excellent place to do business. I mean, take myself, as you can hear, I'm not from the United States. I came from Italy. I did my MBA here. So you see also the educational piece, and I stayed here because I really love this place and this city and this state. So, and there's a lot of those people, as Rod mentioned, young people coming in after the hurricane, seeing what it's all about in terms of New Orleans, seeing that it's not this perception they may have heard in the past, but they actually experienced this themselves, and they were curious enough to come back. And so we see all those different things you hear from the different fellow panelists are really an attest of this really extreme rebound, if you want to call it, of the city, but also of the state.
Thank you. Now, we have time for a few questions. Are there some questions? Yes, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm the ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me start by saying thank you, Office of Protocol and your staff, and thank you, World Trade Center, for organizing this meeting. And thank you, very impressive panelists, for selling New Orleans. I think by the time you leave, we'll be preaching to the choir. So I congratulate you. And let me also congratulate the membership here. In fact, within a 1-foot radius of my present geography, I met Sean and John, who are actually doing business in my country. So thank you for that. Panelists, my question is probably twofold. One is, having experienced the ill of Katrina, I'm from the Caribbean, and I know Antigua, Barbuda, and Bahamas is represented here as well. We have an average of 19 storms passing through the Caribbean per annum. On average, 5 of those storms have the potential to become Category 5 hurricanes. We have actually lost countries, member states, in 15 minutes when a storm blows through. Part of our challenge is in disaster management and disaster recovery. We are looking for some sort of technical assistance in terms of business recovery, and you have lived it. So I'm wondering what sort of potential engagement can be had from this august body in assisting us from that point of view. That's one. Two, what sort of engagement we are here, and we are understanding the opportunities available to potential investors in New Orleans. But on a tactical level, how do you suggest we operationalize that engagement? Is it chamber to chamber? Is it private sector to private sector? How do you envision we actually come up with a tactical plan of engagement? Thank you.
So both of those questions are very apropos. So on the first one, and I'm going to pass it to Mike Olivier to chat a little bit more about. LSU has actually a disaster management institute that's doing some really interesting things. But even beyond that, what we found is here in New Orleans, because we've lived this several times, we've got a lot of companies that have core competencies in how to recover after disasters. And so as an economic development strategy, one of the things that we found is that we've gone to Haiti, we've gone other places that have had these challenges as it relates to how do you recuperate after a storm. And we've been actually exporting a lot of that expertise in terms of best practices, both from an infrastructure and technology perspective, as well as from a know-how perspective. So we can provide you with more information as it relates to that. That's something we've been actively working with markets around the world. The second question as it relates to investment. So my organization is the New Orleans Business Alliance, and our direct purview is how do we bring in new companies and encourage and facilitate investment. So we would be more than glad to help serve as a connecting node. Of course, it's always good when there are business-to-business linkages that are already in place, but we can definitely help facilitate that. So I'd be more than glad to speak with anyone interested in learning more about how to invest in New Orleans.
I would like to direct to you the first question dealing with the recovery issue, business recovery. We learned a lot during the recovery process for business recovery after Katrina and Rita hurricanes. We've been asked, and many people in our state have been asked, to go to various places throughout the world that have suffered catastrophic events. One of the things we've not done well is categorized all of the activities that had taken place. The institute that Rod referred to at Louisiana State University is one of the first places you may want to contact. And Dr. Richard Kubek is here, who's the Dean of the School of Engineering, and I know he'd be glad to meet with you. Richard, if you just raise your hand so he can identify you and stand up, there you go. We'll make that connection for you, please. There are a number of people from the private sector as well Hornbeck as one, who can tell you what some of the things that they've done as a result of catastrophic events dealing with hurricanes. And people from New Orleans, certainly, Baton Rouge, and the lower lying areas of our state certainly can, on into Mississippi and Alabama and the Florida area, and as well as Texas. But we'd like to leave you with this. Also, in Washington, D.C., the International Economic Development Council has established a catastrophic event recovery program to help, and they're based in Washington, D.C. It's called the International Economic Development Council. So I encourage you to make contact with them right there in the capital city.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm an ambassador from South Korea. I would like to ask 2 questions, but before then, I would like to thank all of the business community who are present here today. They made a dramatic efforts in persuading Senator Landrieu and Senator Vitter to say yes to Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. Thank you, thank you. Last Wednesday. And as an ambassador from Korea, I really would like to showcase to the American people that trade agreements will deliver things. We are very serious about that, so I'd like to ask 2 questions. From 2006, Korean private investors are investing more in the United States than U.S. investors are investing in Korea, with a ratio of 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. That was a quite consistent phenomenon when we see last 2 or 3 years as a really economic crisis situation. So the issue is how Korean investors can invest in the state of Louisiana and how they invest in the areas near New Orleans. I would like to ask Mr. Miller that now Korean investors are coming down to Georgia and Alabama. How do you compare your advantage in human resource development? You said that there are 25 universities, and I know that there was tremendous improvements in the academic performance in chartered schools here. How do you compare your advantages of human resources when you compare with Georgia and Alabama? The second question is to Mr. Olivier, that you said some of the tax incentives on some industry, sectors like software and research and development. What are other potentially, attractive industrial sector you would like to attract into this region and to the state of Louisiana? And lastly, what kind of efforts are you making to let the advantages and incentives of the state of Louisiana to be known to potential Korean investors? I can promise you now that from next year, from January 1st, Korea-U.S. trade agreements will go into effect. And I promise you that every year there will be at least 1 trade mission from Korea into New Orleans and into this state. Thank you.
So I'm going to start off by trying to answer that question, and there are a couple of points that I want to hit on. So the most important factor, which the ambassador mentioned, is human capital. Can I get smart people that are going to be able to provide the types of skills that I need for my company to make more money, to be more productive, more profitable in Louisiana than it will be anywhere else in the country or anywhere else in the world? So there's a couple of pieces of that. So when we start looking at, there's 2 sides. There is the talent that's already here, and then there's the talent that's coming. So when we start talking about the talent that's already here, we've got universities such as Tulane, Loyola, Dillard, Xavier, SUNO, UNO, the list goes on and on. And from those universities, we're finding that the quality of student is just as good, if not better, than anywhere else in the world. Tulane was actually the most competitive university to get in the country last year. They had I think about 3,500 slots or something like that, and they had over 40,000 applicants for those slots. So when you start talking about having access to people, smart people, our universities are cultivating and producing smart people in droves. So that's one. So that's when you're talking about the entry-level professional. So we've got a lot of technical expertise, and we've got a lot of folks that are drawn to New Orleans for a variety of reasons. So we're good on that piece in terms of what we're creating. Then the other side of the equation is our ability to attract new talent to the market. So from an attraction perspective, what we found is that every single time we've had a case where a company said, "Can I find the talent?" we've gone head-to-head with other states and we've won. So a prime example is the Game Loft project. That project we worked on with one of our partner economic development organizations. And what we found is that company said, "We're either going to go to Austin or we're going to go to New Orleans." And they said, well, Austin is a known commodity in terms of the digital game and the entertainment industry. New Orleans is an up-and-coming, but we're not sure we can find the talent that we need. So what we did is we went out and we blindly posted for these jobs, and just to give it a test run. We had thousands, literally thousands of applicants that were highly qualified from around the country that applied for 13 positions. That's the kind of talent that we're able to consistently draw to New Orleans. Then we build on that, so you say, well, that's great. What's the long-term trajectory in terms of talent in the marketplace? So New Orleans has been the model, the most innovative place in the country in terms of K-12 reform. So post-Katrina, Katrina was really an opportunity for us to say, wow, where's our public school system and how do we fix it? So now we've got 72% of the schools that are in this marketplace are charter schools. Now, charter in and of itself, so there's school choice, so that's one. And the options are wide-ranging. So those options range from schools that are completely bilingual schools to schools that are music and arts schools, schools that are science and technology schools, to schools that are more traditional education options. So there are a variety of education options at the K through 12 level to ensure that we've got the long-term pipeline that we need. So we're able to compete effectively with Georgia, Alabama, and others because we've got a great infrastructure both at the higher ed as well as at the K-12 level. And then all of that is undergirded by something which we've not really talked about, which is openness. So there's a reputation that Louisiana traditionally hasn't been an open place. That's just not true. Louisiana is a place where it doesn't matter what country you're from, what you look like, or what language you speak. It's open to people that are willing to invest. It's open to people that are willing to participate and be a part of this community. And that's really at the crux of what Louisiana is about.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Mike,
Ambassador.
We need to take one more question because I think we're going to. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to direct your question, but I will send this information to you. Specifically, these are the areas that Louisiana is focusing on: digital media and software development, which you heard about, next generation automotive, and I'm going to send you this list, so don't write it down, specialty research, hospitals, obesity, diabetes research and treatment, pharmaceutical manufacturing, energy efficiency and green manufacturing, renewable energy, nuclear power and plant production, water management, unconventional natural gas, which with our Haynesville shale and other shale areas, ultra-deepwater oil, and enhanced oil recovery. Those are the 12 focus areas, and I'll send these to you. Thank you. And we'll be looking forward to receiving your delegation as they come each year.
Right. Yes, thank you. All right, one last question back here.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the excellent presentation. We're getting involved in the New Orleans business. I'm the ambassador of Chile. And let me ask you for a very specific question that may be applicable to other Latin American countries. We have an FTA since 2004, and it's been a very successful one with the bilateral trade growing, more than doubling the exports from both countries. And this year is growing about 39% with a surplus in favor to the U.S., so it's creating some jobs here. And I have a question because the Chilean fruit and the Chilean copper is coming to the U.S. Increasingly, and the main ports are in the Delaware zone, the Wilmington and Philadelphia, and I always wondering why, New Orleans is not an alternative for those shippings. I know that it's a huge facility and one of the biggest in the world. So probably my specific question is what are the competitive advantages of the New Orleans port, probably to Roderick or to any one of you who can help us on thinking on exploring ways of attracting more shipping from Latin America to the U.S. through New Orleans. The Panama Canal is going to be enlarged in the future, so it's a growing idea for our businessman. Thank you.
I will try to answer this question, what is a really interesting one, and in fact we had a chance to talk really quick earlier, and we want to certainly work together much more with Chile, because Chile right now, if you look at in terms of exports from our sides, we export we're roughly 29th in terms of position in the export rank, so it doesn't play a huge role right now, but I do agree. Because I'm from Europe, I know what European countries do, and I have a lot of, I know a lot about Chile, about the climate there, and also about the framework of business. So I believe really that why we're not doing it, I do not know. What we try to do in terms of from the World Trade Center, we try to identify the 4 or 5 countries we go out with surveys, we try to identify the countries where our constituencies, our members, together with the state and so on and so forth, want to go in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and so we try to focus on those. So why it's not on, I do not know, but I think there's huge potential, especially if you look at the opening of the Panama Canal in 2014, who will give us better access then as well. And as you know, it will not just give our port in the state of Louisiana, but the whole Gulf Coast more access. So I would like to reach out to you afterwards and to identify some of the areas, to identify also some of the business who are currently already doing business with, and then together with the New Orleans Business Alliance and maybe with the state to find out how we can benefit on the actual trade routes already.
Now the real last question.
Thank you very much. I want Mwanaidi Maja, Ambassador of Tanzania to the United States of America. Want to thank Ambassador Marshall, the Chief of Protocol and her team, and the World Trade Center, New Orleans for having us today. I will come to a question. American businesses are conspicuously missing in Africa. There are some, but conspicuously missing now. American businesses missed the mobile telephone bonanza. American businesses are not in the mineral sector extractive industry. The questions we hear and the issues that are raised is about China in Africa, but America isn't in Africa. Now, I wanted to raise the issue that now, I know American businesses are very sensitive. They look into countries and they want to see stability and they want to see certainty. And for us, for example, in Tanzania, the American government and the Tanzanian government have very good programs together. Tanzania is one of the 2 countries in Africa that are now on a new initiative of Partnership for Growth. Tanzania has retained stability for the last 50 years. The extractive industry is thriving. Gold, we are number 3 after Ghana and South Africa. Natural gas is in Barbados. Oil is waiting to be discovered. I see the presentation about oil running out and the technology that you have for oil exploration. Agriculture is abundant and the market is there. Cyclical droughts in Somalia, Kenya, and Southern Sudan have created a market. You can never have food security in countries like Tanzania if you don't have enough to sell to those areas. And those are all opportunities for American businesses. So when we talk of international trade, I was saying what kind of strategy would you have in place for you now to enter the business in Africa, which is said by many, including the World Bank, that it's the next economic frontier? Thank you. And of course, when you come to Africa, please think of Tanzania.
I just want to make sure that I understood the question correct. The question was, what are the opportunities that we're seeing as it relates to trade in Africa? Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that we've been really diligently working on is trying to figure out how do we increase exports in our market. So this is a very sad statistic. Only 1% of U.S. businesses export. And of that 1% of U.S. businesses that export, 58% of those only export to one other country. So that's one challenge. And then the second challenge, of course, is that with the recession that we've seen nationally, most of the major expansions in terms of investment haven't been U.S. countries. As we heard the gentleman from Korea say that, the investment from Korea into the U.S. has been 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 in the last years. So part of what we're engaged in, we've got a 5-point strategy that we're engaging on as it relates to the economy here in New Orleans. But one of those strategies is engaging globally, and we're finalizing finalizing an MOU with the World Trade Center on how we work on some of those things. Well, under that engaging globally piece, there are 3 components. There's FDI, foreign direct investment. There is trade, and then there's also, of course, the talent component. As it relates to Africa, what we found is that there are some specific groups here in New Orleans that have interest in Africa, and they've actually come to us. And sadly, we've not had the experience in Africa to be able to point them in the right direction. But what I would like to do is maybe provide you with my card and see if there are some ways that we can connect some of those groups that have reached out to us with interest in Africa and connect them with you. Thank you.
Right. I would also like to add on what Rod was saying here. Is that we work closely together, and we know from the World Trade Center, as well as Rod alluded to, that Africa will be a key, or is a key area for us as well. We saw it, for example. I give you some examples. We saw it recently. We hosted the ambassador of Senegal, who's unfortunately not here today with us, and she came down. We invited 80 companies because, as you know, they found also oil, and so we gave our companies a chance to show what they do and what sort of knowledge we have. Out of that, they're actually developed a business relationship of a company we had who went into the president of Senegal, and now they're working together to build the first renewable energy platform composed out of solar, turbines, and wind. What was developed here, but was not done here, but will be probably done in Senegal to help them with some of the energy. So it's not all about oil and gas. It's not all about the areas we normally work in, but it's really just to connect. And so I would also echo with Rod. Sometimes we have issues to connect with the right people there to make sure that the advantages you just heard, yes, we know it here in the panel, and yes, Louisiana know it, but how do we can reach out to the right person? And that's why we are extremely happy that you all are here, because I think you are the key to really bring it out, bring the message to the right people, to the right industries as well. And then we are here willing to connect. And so as Rod said, we are here, we would like to do business. And we know, for example, with Senegal, but we had also with several other countries from Africa, really, really good experiences. And another thing I wanted to mention, we try also to do conferences and similar things. And we have, for example, because of our close ties with Latin America, to refer with the question earlier from the ambassador of Chile, that we have this year, the first time, the CCA, the Central Caribbean American Action Conference here in New Orleans. And so if you have any suggestions for us, or if you anything you want to give us, we certainly are happy. We are here, and we would like to make sure that it goes to the right businesses here in locally here, so that they can connect. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things we really like to do is show off our local talent. And one, we thank you so much for being here, but we really appreciate these gentlemen, their time, their expertise, their talent, and their willingness to share with you. One word of logistics that I've been asked, if the ambassadors would leave the way they came in, I think your bus is waiting for you downstairs, and we will do that. We certainly appreciate your time. We certainly appreciate your willingness to come to our city and let us share with you, and we wish you the best for the rest of your day. Thank you.